Silver's been called the poor man's gold for centuries, but that nickname understates its importance today. In the 21st century economy, it runs on silver. Its exceptional electrical and thermal conductivity makes it indispensable for technologies ranging from solar cells, electric vehicles, smartphones, and 5G infrastructure. Unlike gold, which is primarily held as a store of wealth, nearly 60% of all silver is used in industrial purpose. And many applications have no viable other substitute. So as demand accelerates, the supply picture tells a really starkly story about challenges. Mine output has plateaued, ore grades are declining, and new projects almost take a decade to bring to production. So in short, we are consuming more silver than we are mining, and the imbalance is really becoming more critical year after year. The deficit is real. After 5 years of modest surpluses between 2016 and 2020, the market flipped in 2021. That year, silver consumed exceeding production by 75 million ounces. That deficit widened in the next year, and there was a deficit of 184.2 million ounces in 2023 and 148.9 million ounces in 2024. Analysts are estimating that 2025 will see a shortfall of roughly around 117.6 million ounces, marking 5 consecutive years in which demand is outstripping supply. Cumulatively, the deficit since 2021 are projected to drain nearly 800 million ounces of above-ground stock, which is equivalent to 10 months of global mining production. So the key contributors to the deficit is industrial demand is surging. Industrial fabrication consumes a record 680.5 million ounces of silver in 2024 and is projected to exceed 700 million ounces in 2025. In a large part, solar. Solar manufacturing alone used 197.6 million ounces in 24, with each solar panel containing 20 grams of silver, and the installations are projected to grow with double-digit growth rates. Analysts are expecting solar demand to grow 8 to 10% annually every year through 2030. Electric vehicles. Each electric vehicle requires 25 to 50 grams of silver per vehicle, roughly twice the 15 to 28 grams used in internal combustion engines. And with global EV sales rising at double-digit rates, automotive silver demand is forecasted to reach 90 million by 2025. Smartphones, laptops, and 5G base stations also rely on silver's superior conductivity, with each smartphone containing about 0.25 to 0.35 grams of silver. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it really adds up. And so that global electronics sector is consuming roughly 30 million ounces of silver annually. Medical is also emerging with new technologies for silver's antimicrobial properties, using it in dressings, water filtration, medical instruments, and so many other expanding uses. The investment circle, the investment demand. Although industrial uses dominate, investment demand keeps growing and it's adding more pressure. Bar and coin purchases average around 200 to 250 million ounces per year. And exchange traded product remains strong as well. For example, central banks are also pushing the storyline. Russia accumulated over $600 million worth of silver in 2024, and many other central banks are starting to do the same thing. These drivers push total demand beyond supply, even with mine output rising modestly. With industrial applications growing faster than global GDP, deficits are not a cyclical quirk, not a one-time event, but a structural shift in how silver is being consumed. And mining can't keep up. The constraints are real. Silver supply is constrained by geology and economics. Globally, only about 27 to 30% of silver comes from a silver primary mine. The majority is produced as a byproduct of copper, lead, and zinc mining. Thus, silver output does not respond directly to higher prices. Even when prices surge, miners focus on the primary metals, leaving silver relatively inelastic, the supply. So structural challenges include declining ore grades. On average, ore grades have fallen around 25% over the past decade, meaning miners must process much more rock to produce the same amount of silver. And so that increase is increase in energy use and increase in costs. Long lead times. Bring a new silver mine from discovery to production typically takes 7 to 10 years. Project approvals any projects that are approved now won't have a meaningful impact on supply until the next decade. Environmental and regulatory hurdles, stricter permitting and community opposition are real delays or even cancel projects in major production nations such as Mexico and Peru. Security and political issues further offer constraints on investments. China is prioritizing domestic consumption over exports and thus reducing available supply in a global market. And the recycling silver has limitations. Secondary supply meets only about 20% of annual demand. Recovering silver from electronics and industrial products is challenging because each item contains only a small amount of silver. Jewelry and silverware recycling responds somewhat to higher prices, but volumes remain relatively small. As a result, mine production has stagnated at about 835 million ounces of silver and is projected to peak in 2026 before declining. And with deficits averaging for around 100 to 150 million ounces per year, the above-ground inventories are being drawn down. COMEX registered inventories fell 70% between 2020 and 2023. While ETF holdings declined about 108 million ounces in 2023, industrial stockpiles now cover only about 30 to 45 days of consumption compared to 100 days historically, leaving very small buffer. Mining costs are rising. Silver miners are also fighting cost inflation. According to industry analysis, the all-in sustaining cost, AISC, at primary silver mines averaged 15 to 18 per ounce in 2023. That's up from 10 to 12 ounces just 5 years earlier. That's up from $10 to $12 per ounce cost just 5 years earlier. Higher energy prices, rising labor costs, and stricter environmental regulations is driving these increases. Declining ore grades mean that more ore must be processed for each ounce of silver. Meanwhile, 70% of the world's silver supply comes from lead and zinc mining, and when these base metals fall, those mines reduce output, tightening the silver market further. These rising costs create a natural price floor. Even at $40 per ounce, many operations are struggling to maintain profitability. While higher silver prices incentivize exploration, the long development cycle and byproduct nature of supply means that new projects can't quickly alleviate shortages. Investors sometimes dismiss silver rallies as speculative. However, today's market is moving out of necessity, and that is the big difference. It's a structural deficit. This is driving non-negotiable industry requirements. It's not just investment flows, but it's in many ways it's from applications. There's no adequate substitute to replace silver. Tech companies need silver to build product. If they cannot secure silver, the factories halt. As deficits widen, these companies will compete with investors and jewelry buyers for the same ounce of silver. Because silver is also a monetary metal, it offers inflation protection and portfolio diversification. Historically, silver has outperformed gold during several major crises. Its price volatility, roughly 2 to 3 times greater than gold, offers higher potential returns. Yet physical silver remains relatively inexpensive on a gold to silver ratio. That's currently around 90%. Silver remains very accessible to a broader range of investors. Asking myself, could silver hit $500 an ounce? Is $500 silver a fantasy? At first glance, that price seems ridiculous, considering current levels in 2025 are around $40 per ounce. However, the argument for a major price explosion rests on the structural deficit, inelastic supply, and essential industry demand. Analysts at mainstream banks project gains that will continue. More aggressive forecasts are seeing about $100 to $130 per ounce in 2026 if supply shortages intensify. So consider a $500 per ounce scenario for silver. What would it take? Where would the world be? Industrial demand might double due to acceleration, renewable energy, build-outs, and widespread EV adoption. Production stagnates as mines existing deplete and few new projects come online. Above-ground inventories are drained, leaving manufacturers without buffering for their stock. And tech giants bid aggressively for limited supply, prioritizing production of semiconductors and solar panels and EVs over price. So under such conditions, which could happen, silver could experience a price spike similar to rare earth metals during past shortages. While this is not an immediate forecast, the possibility illustrates how critical silver is today. Today's modest price increase may only be the beginning of supply constraints remaining unresolved and industrial demand continuing to accelerate. The silver market is undergoing a historic transformation. For decades, silver was abundant and cheap, but today structural deficits, surging industry demand, and mining costs are creating a squeeze. We're literally running out of available silver to produce what we need. By understanding these dynamics and planning accordingly, we can navigate the landscape and you can figure out how much silver you should be putting in your portfolio based on your current position and how long you're going to hold on to the product. All in all, I do think we'll be looking back at the days when silver was in the double dollar digits soon enough, and we're still very cheap. So if I can help you with your silver, reach out to Coastal Treasures. We're always a phone call away.